Ricky and Deb are authors of Making Love While Farming, a field guide to a life of passion and purpose that is equal parts memoir, inspiration, and handbook. They will speak on love and vision in disruptive times. Please type your questions into the Q&A to be addressed at the end of the talk, and join me in welcoming Dr. Deb Habib and Ricky Baruch of Seeds of Solidarity Farm. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Lise, and everyone who's made this possible. And Joe, that was a beautiful beginning to this morning. Thank you so much for that tribute. I think Joe needs to mute now. So we're going to share our screen because we're going to pull up some images that we'd like to have up while we're talking about this theme of honoring nature and love and vision in disruptive times and in all times. And it's nice, we're looking out actually over one of our garlic fields right now. So we're pretty close to nature and things starting to bubble, which is wonderful. Okay, take a second here. All right. So we're going to share some images, and we're going to read just a couple of short excerpts from our book at the end of that, and then, as Lee said, we'll open it to conversation, and we'll be prompting that with a few questions, or seeding it, I should say, with a few questions. But of course, feel free to put anything in the question and answer as we go along, and then we'll look forward to being in conversation. We really wanted to, talk about values and qualities today, because we really feel that those are the foundation of, how we move forward in our lives and our communities. And I say we, but I mean all of us. So as we're sharing today, we invite you to think about the values and qualities that are important to you, and particularly through this lens of honoring nature.
Whew. I think the word courage is critical at this time, always. And I think that really, what we kind of created was all about, having courage to take these steps. And I think that's really, I share a lot is about, how do we all become spiritual warriors, and warriors in the best sense of the word? Because you really have to really focus on your vision, your reality. And that's really what you can see by these two pieces of what we entered into. People said you can never farm this land. And then the other photo, you can see what has been created. Connection's critical in our lives, reality. And I think, unfortunately, in this COVID time, it's kind of stressed us a bit, not having the connection, human-to-human connection. But this is wonderful. Thank you all for putting this on. But it really, what strengthens our life is people in our life and the connections. So as you can see, that's our garlic crew, and diverse connections critical in people.
That was 2 years ago. This last crew was the same crew, but we had really joyful masks on at the same time.
Balance and heart, key in terms of having balance, but sharing with someone the other day was that I feel like if you follow your heart, it will bring you to a sacred relationship to whatever you do. And I think that's really key. And I think that's what we're all after. And it was really wonderful to listen to Sherry Mitchell yesterday. And I think really that's it, listen to your heart, not so much the head. It will take you into a sacred relationship. In our case, a sacred relationship to the land.
So we have a farm, a vegetable and garlic farm, Seeds of Solidarity Farm, as Lise mentioned, in Orange. So I know there's people joining in from, not just locally and regionally, but far afield. So we're not too far as the crow flies from Northfield, the base of this wonderful festival. but the community that we're in is known as the North Quabbin region, and it's one of the lowest wealth regions in Massachusetts. There's incredible people here, incredible skills, and it's a community that really struggles. So in addition to running the farm, we also run a nonprofit organization, and the focus of that is really to build skills for food sovereignty and food resilience and food justice. And we do a lot of work in and for our community. So I think is, us asking the question in our lives, how do we not only do what we do for our own family and our land and as farmers, but how do we extend that outward into the community? And the value or the intention that all should be nourished with good food, quality food, is not a radical concept. It's a very basic concept, but nourishing all and doing so with beauty is a lot of how we spend our days. And in particular, Ricky really runs. We both work on the farm, but Ricky really runs the bulk of our farming. And as you saw in the first slide, our focus on farming is really not domination over the land, but really to work with the soil and work with the life that's there to build and nourish and grow soil, to grow food and honor the life that's there. So we try and do that with others in our community as well. For quite a number of years, we ran a program for local youth, again in our region, where there's quite a lot of trauma as well as poverty, and all these amazing young people at the same time, who are isolated in a lot of ways. So I think, especially as we get older and older and realize the things that we realized from the start, though, what we would have loved to have had when we were young people, when we were teenagers. And so the values of bringing young people together in community, outside of a school space, outside of a family space, where they can just really create and be who they are and experience a kind of sense of liberation as we do our best as mentors was really important. Now we've transitioned that, those intentions into another kind of program for slightly older youth. So again, folks who I think live in the Western Mass, Central Mass, North Quabbin region, I think that we've experienced a sense of community and cooperation and collaboration and qualities of mutual aid that are just pretty extraordinary. And I know that there are others on here who have their own stories from their own communities that we'd love to hear from. But I think we can't do it all alone. And so we think about, and this is very much a nature parallel, we think about what it means to kind of function as an ecosystem. And in an ecosystem, every organism isn't trying to do the role of every other organism. It wouldn't function, right? It wouldn't be a functional ecosystem. So, within a natural ecosystem, organisms have their own roles, but then there's ways in which there's fluidity and there's, ways in which it makes it whole. So we really see a community in the same way. And, here's just a couple images of one important partner to us in our community, and there's many, but this is Quabbin Harvest, which is a small food co-op started by women who wanted to be able to feed their kids good food in our community. And 10 years later, we're able to support the co-op in a lot of ways. We sell a lot of our food there, but we also partner as a nonprofit organization to be able to get lots of food out to people who really need that food. So we're stronger together rather than all trying to do it all.
This is our home. I think creativity, as so many artists, and poets, writers on this experience today, creativity is everything. Being creative. The other piece I always like to share, especially with our youth, is following your idiosyncrasies, because I think it's your idiosyncrasies that makes you unique and different. So that's basically how we live our life. We kind of work with our idiosyncrasies and we kind of create from there. And consciousness is everything. In this case, energy consciousness is really key. And we had spent time in Iraq, and coming back from Iraq was pretty clear that we could no longer really want to support fossil fuels. So at this point in our life, our home is solar, the farm is solar, and now we actually even have an electric car. So, and actually the building we're in is all solar. So, which is Deb's office. So yeah, so I think it is all these pieces to create the life you want to create that's going to work for the planet.
Ricky's also, I'll just mention, we built our home. We didn't have much choice because we didn't have the money to have someone else build it. So Ricky's a wonderful builder. And, that was something that we shared in together. We stayed married through it, which, there is, I think, a chapter in our book called Build a House, Keep That Spouse, or something like that. When Ricky said we were in Iraq, also, we're not veterans. We were on a pilgrimage, an interfaith international pilgrimage. So you can also read about that in our book.
Whew. Yeah, boy. I think a big piece for us is that we really want to share what we've learned. Inspiration is critical, and skills. And I think especially for the young folks, really hands-on skills is critical. That's really, those really are key components. I think the really big thing is hands, heart, and back to the land, reconnecting to the earth. Because back to Sherry Mitchell, we are from the earth, and we got to reconnect back to the earth, and that's really it. I know Paul Richmond is watching, one of the members of the festival committee, and the festival is an incredible example of community building, incredible ecosystem of us all working together and building a healthy local economy. So I think, as we all say, is the festival is kind of like the world we all would like to live in. So I think that really, and I think the piece about it is it starts from one and goes out from there, that I think it really is the love between the organizers of the festival, and then when people come to the festival, they feel that love. And I think that's really a critical piece to whatever we do. What does it mean to the ends? It's got to be the whole kit and caboodle, from the beginning, starting from love and love throughout the whole experience.
There was a program that Yes Magazine put on earlier this week with Winona LaDuke and a friend of ours, Leah Penniman, and some other great folks. And, one of the things Winona said, and I've heard her say this a few times, was like, just do something, like just jump and just do something, because I think especially in these times where to some extent excess technology combined with and almost too much information that's available, combined with sort of this intense time that we've, all been living in a year now, really, of for many of us, a kind of sense of isolation, but also realizing we can move out of this period of the pandemic in some perhaps new and different ways, and people are. And she said, just do something, and don't worry so much about having to get it right. And I think that creating the North Quabbin Garlic and Arts Festival, and again, shout out to Paul Richmond, who's one of the speakers in this festival, as well as a committee member on Garlic and Arts. But way back when, people said if we had done a feasibility study, or if we had, tried to figure out if it would work, it definitely would have come back no. It definitely would have come back no. There's no doubt about it, a formal feasibility study. So, but if you have not been to the North Quabbin Garlic and Arts Festival, 10,000 people show up on a weekend to share in this really amazing thing. So I think that's just an example of 5 of us, 22 years ago, just said, let's just do it. I guess more than a value, or it's a value, but it's also sort of a motto or mantra, is grow food everywhere. And again, we just try and do that in a number of different settings, and including factories outside in our town, and with people who are incarcerated at Franklin County Jail. So we really believe that in order to decentralize food production and get more people connected, again, back to the theme of this critical weekend and beautiful weekend that Lisa's coordinated with such grace, how do we get more people connected to the earth? And, one of the most joyful and productive ways is really to have your hands in the soil and grow food from seed to harvest. And I know probably many people who are watching this today have had that experience, and many other people are disconnected from their roots, in which everyone, had some participation in growing food and living that close to the source of your sustenance. Seeds of Solidarity is the name of our farm and organization, and over the years, not everyone has actually known when I've said the word solidarity. If I'm having to call into the state for some businessy thing related to the nonprofit organization, the funniest response I ever got back when I said the word Seeds of Solidarity, somebody said, Caesar's solidarity. So again, I think this word solidarity is such a critical word in so many ways. And while we work closely in our own community and deeply in our own community, which is part of our philosophy, we also ask and explore and participate in other ways of being in solidarity. So we have a wonderful friend who's become a strong part of Seeds of Solidarity, Stami Oswa, and this past year in particular, we really came up with a program together, but she took the lead because she's originally from Zimbabwe, where we were able to do a solidarity program together. Healing, again, I mentioned that, this quality of, or this very important experience of people being more deeply connected to the land, to our sources of sustenance, is healing. And we've experienced that quite a bit working with youth. And now we're working on a new initiative called Women Healing Earth for women in the North Quabbin region in particular. So we're not going to jump right into conversation yet. We thought we'd pull away from screen share and each read a short passage in our book. I think I'm going to read it, yeah. But we wanted to put up a couple of questions just to think about, and just take a moment, if you would, to think about those. And then perhaps after we do our reading, if you would like to contribute your thoughts on any of these to the question and answer, those might be good starting points for conversation. I think we'll have plenty of time for conversation, which is great. So just take a moment with those before we come off a screen share. So we're going to read from our book, which is called Making Love While Farming, Field Guide to a Life of Passion and Purpose. It was published by Levelers Press in Amherst, which is a wonderful, in addition to Human Error Publishing, it's a wonderful cooperative union press. So I'm going to come off the screen share now as I find my page. Okay, great. Wow, now I can see all the people that are on here. I mean, I can't see you, but I can see you in number. How wonderful. Great. Thank you so much for being here. Couldn't see while we were screen sharing the folks on. So again, it's great to be here. So I mentioned a couple times as we were sharing the images, the quality of healing, and also that we've worked with young people among lots of other folks over the years. And I think in particular, as we all know, this has been a very challenging time, I think, for a lot of young people. We have a 21-year-old who's, finding his way pretty well right now. He decided not to be in college, and he's doing lots of other things this year instead. But there's a lot of young folks who don't have that option, and I think are feeling pretty isolated. And the excess virtual screen time, remote learning thing, there's going to be some aftermath of that, I think, that perhaps we as adults can help support. And I know many of you already do, to reconnect kids to themselves, to each other, to the land. That's always a need. So I'm just going to read a very short section from a story about our youth program. And again, this was many years ago, but connection with nature is always important. So this is sort of a section from within one story. So it's a little bit excerpty. One memorable spring, it seemed to rain every other day. On a May afternoon, 25 of us sat on our handmade benches, formed into a big hexagon on the flattest piece of ground between the greenhouse and garden. The sky quickly grayed, then blackened. Each week at our Soul Garden program, we start with an opening topic: food miles, fair trade, labels and GMOs, ecological pest management, climate change, nutrition, and the like. That week, the topic was youth activism. I thought something light and simple would be a good way to initiate the opening conversation as we passed the snacks. Name a time you acted to help a cause or help someone out, I suggested. I was thinking I made brownies for a bake sale, participated in the car wash to raise funds for band uniforms, picked up litter. But as often happens, sharing in our circle goes places unexpected and powerful. I quit my addiction to alcohol. I helped my friend who was homeless find a place to stay. I supported a friend who was abused by her ex-boyfriend. I came out as gay. And the list went on as the circle went round. I could feel Ricky and our other staff member, Carrie, taking it in as we made eye contact and shared a silent expression of, holy shit, where do we go from here? And then the first rain started. Grabbing backpacks, everyone ran for cover in the greenhouse, laying out some of our tattered blankets in a big circle on the greenhouse soil. The week before, a group of kids had removed the previous year's tomato cages and winter withered vines. Not yet replanted, the greenhouse was our best option for cover. The space was dusty but dry, and dry was what we needed as the heavy clouds opened. Inside, we tried to keep the conversation going, but intense rain hitting a greenhouse drowns out any possibility of talking. So we just paused and listened to the sounds. Then the first kid asked, "Can I go outside in the rain?" It was warm and there was no lightning, so why not? And then the next kid, and the next, until most were standing outside in the downpour, faces to the sky, arms overhead, waters running over them, cheap mascara dripping, sneakers mud-covered, t-shirts soaked. They were cleansing. This was clear. Some in silence, others yelping with uncontrolled laughter. We watched them, all with something of our own to release and maybe heal.
Whew. This is a piece called Being Here Now from the chapter Rituals of a Farmer. Much has evolved eternally and externally over my 3 decades of farming. After farming organically, but still with tractors and not in a way that was humanly or environmentally sustainable on my farm in upstate New York, I shifted to approach farming in a way that has always felt more right for me, using hand tools. Yet my mind would still try to seduce me, be like everyone else, get a tractor and go faster. Finally, in my 50s, I've settled into how I do it and it feels right. In fact, I realized that if I over manipulate the soil, I am imposing a mindset of a colonizer, seeking to dominate rather than to observe, respect, and honor in my participation with the soil as a farmer. This not only leads to healthier crops and soil, but as I work to decolonize my mindset in related ways of being as a farmer, I simultaneously shift my ways of being as a human. Having found my way of farming, one that keeps evolving with the years, there is such a special feeling being and working on this piece of ground that fills me with joy and centeredness. After 30 years of farming, I'm settled with my approach, staying focused on tasks, not technology, and working at a pace that is humanly sustainable. In my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I was always looking down the road. Then when I turned 50, I shifted to being here now by farming in touch with the land in an active prayer as I feed the soil. Every shovelful of compost is food for the life in the soil. The mulch to keep life and garlic warm for the winter will also break down and feed the life in the soil. the microbes that will help plants take up the fertilizer more efficiently. Yes, the world around me is in utter chaos. In the old days, I'd spend my day mulling that over, pretty pissed off. But these days, I'm ready for a different consciousness, a different way of being, a reality that I believe in, that I want to live in right now. Here I am, a Sephardic Ashkenazi Jew on the land of the Nipmuc people, seeking to be and farm the land in a sacred manner. Mahatma Gandhi said, "My life is my message." While pushing a wheelbarrow filled with compost, with my mind clear and the sun out, I'm fully alive. It is my life and my work all wrapped together. It is my message and my prayer.
Thank you. Oh, thank you very much for, experiencing a part of our life and work and ways and listening. And I'm very happy to open it up to questions and conversation at this point. So I think, Lise, you wanna, I don't know if people have put anything in there.
Right, so people should feel free to type their questions into the Q&A, which is found at the bottom of your Zoom window there. And if they're panelists with questions, they can feel free to unmute and ask directly. And it looks like Paul has one already.
Hi, Deb. Hi, Rick. So good to see you.
Wow.
Great presentation. Honored to be part of the festival. Talk a little bit more about what gives you the courage to go with your wild ideas. I've done a bunch of workshops myself, and people always say, well, do you have the skills and do you think it will work? And if like we had made a list of all the skills you needed to get to where you guys are now, would you have looked at that list and said, oh yeah, I've got all those?
But the first thing that actually comes to my mind is interesting, and I hope it doesn't offend anyone, especially family members, my family members. But like I mentioned earlier about idiosyncrasies, and I think what's really interesting is for many of us, we may not have gotten the love we wanted from our parents, and especially my father who passed away a year ago. And so I think a lot of times if you get a lot of love from your parents and then you're out there and you want to expect people to give you good feedback, you're dependent on that. That's a setup. But in my case, working my idiosyncrasies, not really getting the support from my dad, especially in the love, I don't really care what people think of what I do. And so I'm not expecting anything in return. And so it gives me a lot more freedom. So it's a mixed bag. It has its issues too. But the point is that especially my idiosyncrasy is that I could just kind of move forward, not expecting, people to be, good idea, And I think that's basically how what we created at Seeds of Solidarity has all been about, against all odds. Like people said, they're never going to be able to farm this land. No one's ever going to come to this farm stand in the middle of nowhere. No one's ever going to come to this festival. So I think you really have the courage, spiritual warrior, just do it.
Yeah, I think also, we met almost 40 years ago now at an amazing place called the New Alchemy Institute on Cape Cod. And it doesn't exist any longer as a research education center, but you can get all of the amazing visionary materials. And anyone who's on this conference, I think would be interested, if you're interested at all in honoring nature, because that is an incredible place. But we met there. And so I think I bring that up to kind of say that we found each other, in this lifetime. And I feel really grateful for that. And I feel like we've been able to share our vision together. And so I get a lot of courage being in relationship where we can do that. But if people don't have that, or if you have different interests than your partner, or if you haven't quite found it yet or whatever, then find it in community in other ways. I think it's hard. There are, I think, rare people, it's not me, but there are rare people that can do things alone. But I think personally, finding community gives a lot of courage, and that might be one other person. It might be a group of 3 or 5 that you can work with, and whatever it is, you don't have to start a farm. You can, make art together, or there's so many amazing ways that we can make courage and beauty and love manifest in these times, and I know many of you do that. Okay. So Lisa, I can see the questions also. Would you like to pick one though, or do you want us to unmute? Oh.
Yes. There's an interesting comment by somebody who says, Renee says, I find sitting around a fire brings people together and changes the energy to reconnect to the earth.
Yeah.
Would you like to comment?
Yeah. That's for sure. I mean, any connection to the elements, I think is gonna strengthen. And again, it was interesting just going back to, I'd mentioned this webinar that Yes Magazine did earlier this week, and someone asked that question of, Winona LaDuke in a way, and they were sort of perplexed, like about cultural appropriation of indigenous spiritual traditions and things like that. It was an important question. And she said, just go to a river, like just go to water, go to like a puddle, like go to any, body of water and just sit there with it, look at your faucet and the water coming out. I mean, so she was sort of saying that just connect with the elements in any way that's meaningful to you. And I think the comment about sitting around a fire is a beautiful one. And I think in this past year, more people have found the beauty in that who hadn't before, perhaps, and hopefully we'll continue to do it.
There's a question about no-till gardening practices. What is it?
Say a little bit more about that, and then we'll let people know where to go for even more information.
I think the biggest piece about it is the whole concept of, if it wasn't for the first 12 inches of soil, we wouldn't exist. And so it's really that whole honoring of it. And so the whole concept is not tilling, meaning you don't go in there and just mess with it. You don't disturb it. If anything, you pray to it and honor it. And what the whole concept of no-till is actually just adding, compost, cardboard, leaves, wood chips on top of it as an offering and plant into that. So it's really, you don't disturb it. They have it figured out. They've taken millions and millions of years. Today's so-called scientists are finally realizing unbelievable information about communication, mycorrhizal fungi. It is beyond, and also the whole piece about the soil is similar to our gut biome. So the connection between our gut biome and the soil biome is the same. So it's miraculous. So the whole concept of not tilling, and what I really use is life force growing. So it's really working with the life force, and that's what we're after. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good question. It's hard to find the one word that isn't no-till, like what is it? Internationally, I found more people use the word agroecological. Some people, you might hear the word regenerative. And there's different, techniques involved or qualities involved, but, Ricky said it really well. It's shifting that sort of dominant colonizer mindset and just, being more connected to what's already going on. And that can happen on a gardening level or on a farming level. And there's more about it in our book. We also have a YouTube channel called The Cardboard Method. And there's some great videos that we've put up there that lots of people seem to get a lot out of, where you can learn. And also, we are going to be doing some small group workshops on site this season at Seeds of Solidarity. So, anyone who lives in the region, and region could be New England, go to seedsofsolidarity.org and stay tuned and join our mailing list and all that kind of stuff. All right. You see another question you like, Lise?
Oh, I like them all. I wanted to tell people in the book, there's some great stories about how you obtain enough cardboard for your farm. People would really enjoy reading that. So There are two questions that are kind of asking about relationship and how personal practices keep you focused, and having family come back to live with you. What are the visions for your future? And so these are all related.
Okay. You can see it there. If you want.
Yeah, wow, big questions. You go for it.
Okay, I'm trying to pull it back up so I can read it. Where did it go? Oh, I see. It went into answered.
Okay.
Can you bring that back, Lisa? I'd like to see, or is it impossible to bring it back to the Q&A once you've named it? I wanted to see it again.
Sorry, I think
That's okay. It's
I
okay.
got
If it's
sorry.
gone, no worries. No worries. That's okay. Go ahead.
No.
So was it practices that keep the relationship strong? Was that the gist of it?
Yeah, it was what do you have besides your work that keeps you going forward?
Mm,
Well, I guess I want to say something about just the sort of ways I think or practices of keeping the relationship strong, because I think that's a really important one. And in our book, this is, by the way, the one we were reading from is very well loved, because we used the same copy at all of our readings. It came out in 2019, so we did have that year to do a bunch of readings, which was great. But I think we've learned a lot about how to kind of separate out like the work we do, be it our farming or running the nonprofit, or our other, we serve on other boards and we do other kinds of community activism work, and kind of make sure that, and Ricky's better at this than I am, but kind of make sure there's a point where that stops and we are just nurturing our relationship. A lot of young farmers, 8 years, that's it. Like that, they stop after 8 years. There seems to be this number of 8 years, and not all those relationships make it either, right? So that's a big problem, like what's going on both in terms of the farming techniques and the societal pressures, and there are a lot of societal pressures on farmers, and they're not all economic. Like we've moved into this time period where it's local food's great, and like and like grow more and do this, and so now there's almost a societal expectation that farmers are kind of supposed to be like these happy always working kind of folks, and there's a lot of conversations that aren't had about the emotional toil on individuals and relationships. So I think for anyone, again, just finding time and space to nurture yourself and nurture your relationship and nurture your family, that's separate from the work we do or the activism we do, is of critical importance. And so now you speak to the other part of that. What was it? Was it going forward or something?
the future.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Was that our future or the future in general?
I don't know.
Say whatever you want.
And I think it was in relationship to having our son home. The question kind of revolved around having our son home and the future. Yeah, day by day, especially with this whole pandemic, trying to figure out. I don't know what to say.
So there's a different question about that, about kids coming home. Maybe I could respond to that one. And then if we didn't answer the other properly, we can somebody else can ask it, or we can return to it. Was it okay to respond to this other question I see here, Lise?
Of course, respond in any order.
Okay, great. The young people coming home, but coming back to live with the parents. So what are our visions for the future as we age? I think it's connected. Well, I think it's really up to the young people. I mean, there's a lot of young people that, as we know, don't have like safe, loving, food secure places to go back to, and that's been a huge issue with especially a lot of colleges not having not being in session. And even last spring when our son had to leave college suddenly, like we didn't have high-speed internet then, right? So he wasn't able to like work remotely, and he had food and he had shelter and he had a lot of those other things, but he didn't have like some of the things that were assumed that many kids would have. And he's in a great situation compared to so many young people, right? Where it's been really hard to move forward and move out of places that aren't always safe and warm and wonderful places. But I think if young people want to come back to their homes or want to come back to their communities or want to stay connected, you know, to their families, that's a beautiful thing. And if they want to go off and be elsewhere and create community elsewhere, that's a beautiful thing too. I think it's, you know, very, very personal and very circumstantial.
So moving
Okay,
from the question of your family's future into a more political realm about agricultural land's future, do you have an opinion on using agricultural land for a solar array in terms of the dual use, which is currently a big issue in Northfield?
Yeah, no, we've been keeping abreast of that. We've been interested in doing solar for, you know, for a long time now. And like I mentioned, we actually spent time down in Barnwell, South Carolina, where all the nuclear waste would go from up here down there. So we've kind of been steeped in it. And, you know, I'm not going to just claim it as a NIMBY, not in my backyard issue, but I think we all are going to have to sacrifice. And as you know, we have in our book, the word sacrifice at the root of it is sacred. So, but I think we all have to take it a little bit. I mean, you know, and I totally get, we want to, you know, have this view. I'm all about it, but at some point, people that we may not see. So we want to see what we want to see, but what we're not seeing is the people down in Barnwell, South Carolina, that got the nuclear waste and are dealing with cancer. So I think every time we think to ourselves, you know, boy, this isn't necessarily the view I want with these solar panels, you know, maybe take a deep breath and say, well, I know there's people in Barnwell, South Carolina, and communities all over the planet that are feeling the impacts of our energy use. And I think we, you know, and especially dual use. I mean, the fact that we can graze animals under it. And, but I think it really, there's no way I could tell somebody, you know, like the view. I mean, of course we love our view and, you know, but I think we have to produce our own energy and we can't be dependent on other people for it. Yeah.
When I remember there was a bumper sticker I saw that was more related to Cape Wind, actually, that someone had, and it said, "It's the vision, not the view." You know, and I think again, this is where we have to, as Ricky said, not only do those of us who have more resource privilege have to sacrifice, but people are suffering and have for a long time all around the world because of resource extraction. People have been like, and are every day, you know, murdered because of resource extraction, of fossil fuels, of coal, of, you know, so forth, that in the 2/3 world, where the first world can consume, you know, we can consume the equivalent of like 3 to 5 planets worth of energy in the United States. It's just not okay. You know, it's just not okay. And it never has been. So there has got to be creative thinking around this. And it isn't, it's not, you know, it's always hard to make a change. It's always hard to make a shift. There may not be any perfect answer to this, but there's creative answers. And I think, you know, and I see the question, it's currently a big issue in Northfield, but again, resource use and extraction has always been a big issue worldwide. People, we may tend to get a little bit more attached to it when it becomes focused in our own community, and we have to make some hard decisions. But again, we can also make really creative decisions around it. So I think maybe you're getting the idea that we are proponents of solar electricity, and there's lots of ways of doing it, and doing it on open lands, and combining agriculture again with animal grazing, with pollinator plantings, with you know, agreements with companies to create a certain amount of space for community gardens with food that would go to food pantries. You know, there's no shortage of ways that we can be visionary and creative, but you know, excessive resource extraction by 5% of the population, when all the rest suffer, is just not okay.
Good. I think Paul had another question.
Yep. So want you to sort of mention how you got to cardboard in terms of adding to your mix of working with the land. Like, how did you come to cardboard?
Well, I think that's once again the whole, back to my own idiosyncrasies. I don't like working on equipment. I don't like equipment, and so so what do you do? And I start. You know, we used to drive, get from Montague to Orange. We'd have to go by the Lever Co-op, and there was always this huge pile of cardboard. What do you think? You know, and I knew people use black plastic to cover land and do stuff. So I thought, what about that? And as it turns out, it's been miraculous. And we call it the Worms Perfect Singles Bar. And it is the life of the soil. And basically what comes down to this is that worm farms feed their worms cardboard. And the perfect plant food is worm casting. So you have this incredible symbiotic relationship. And I think that's really the huge direction we all need to be going in, is that whatever nature does, and nature doesn't till. And so we have to figure out ways of growing food without tilling. And cardboard is miraculous because it opens up the land so you can actually plant. It is the weed control, it's the moisture control, and it's the fertilizer. And also it doesn't release CO2 into the air. And it's using, what's so great about it is it's using this waste product that everyone has access to. I think it's really accessible, it's inexpensive, and it can be fun. So I think those things are critical. Whatever we do, it has to be accessible to everyone, and it has to be fun. You know, I think that's why the festival really took off, is if we called it the environmental festival of the year, whatever, only a certain crowd would come, but calling it the Garlic and Arts Festival, the festival that stinks, I think you got to keep it light and fun. And I think that is the Paul Richmond motto.
These are wonderful, wonderful questions that people have shared. I'd be happy to, answer a few more.
It looks like no one has typed any in. Do you want to, we have about 10 minutes left. Do you want to move into the conversation portion, the questions that you had for people? Or?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I kind of thought this was that also, but sure. Let's
Okay.
So should I put those up? I can put those up again on a screen.
Yeah. Oh wait, one came in. Another question came in.
Sure. I'll just, okay. Yeah, that's fine. We can just, this is conversation too. So, and if anybody, I guess if anybody wants to be unmuted,
yeah, they can raise their hand and I will unmute them. They can ask their question.
Okay. So there's more specific gardening, another specific gardening question here. Well, we can answer that. Somebody's asking about voles, voles in their no-till garden. I mean, this actually relates to kind of the whole theme, because I think that instead of asking how do I get rid of the voles, maybe ask how do I attract more owls. So it's like putting up poles for owls and things like that, right? So that we again work with the ecosystem. There are ways of dealing with voles. There's a castor oil product, but first try putting out more poles for owls and seeing if you can deal with that. Now we have specific pest questions. I think we're not going to do a lot of answering of specific gardening questions here. I think we wanted to get at some of the others, but again, we hope you'll check the Seeds of Solidarity website and maybe come to some of our workshops that are more focused on gardening. So we have actually a couple of, I'm going to put the screen share with some of the questions that we posed back up, just to see if that prompts anyone again with those. Let's see if I can go back one. No, I might not be. There we go.
I just wanted to say to you guys, anything more? I mean, you brought up the whole idea of passion and your passion, and realizing that your passion was strong enough that it didn't matter whether people thought it was a crazy idea.
Yeah.
It really meant something to you and you did it. And you have the example of the Garlic and Art Festival existing. So, so many people, don't feel that courage or the passion, or maybe they don't know their passion. It's an interesting question about how to encourage more people to do just that, what you're talking about.
That's a great question. We start off.
Oh, you said it was a great question. That's a great question.
That's why I love Paul. Very evocative questions. I think it really is the heart. And I think a really big piece is that, society hasn't helped us with the heart, focusing on the heart. It's all stuck in the head. And we have so many layers covering our heart. So even to access our heart, it's not easy. None of this is easy. But I think it's really, really, really important to somehow find your heart. And I think your heart will, enliven your passion. I think it really, it's all connected. And I think it's all connected, back to the food we eat. It's the whole thing. Meaning that, if we just drown our sorrows in, GMO laden food and the wrong stuff. I think it's a really, to be a spiritual warrior, it's about really having a, healthy lifestyle, and not covering up your heart and follow the heart. And I think leading with the heart, but it's difficult in a culture that's not, heck, if I did, there's a chapter in our book, when I told my family I was interested in farming or I was interested in land, my mom says, what about real estate? So the point is that you're not going to get a hell of a lot of support to follow your heart. And so I think that's the huge piece, is that how do you follow your heart when everyone around you is saying, follow stock markets.
I think, it's interesting too, this we have to constantly keep, as Ricky was saying, renourishing ourselves in different ways. And, and this perfect theme of this conference, honoring nature, everybody can find some bit of nature to connect with, no matter where you live and how small it is. But yeah, we have, it's very tempting, as we know. And this period of time now and all the political turmoil being kind of at a high, it's hard to not watch the news a lot. What's happening with COVID, what was happening with the election. We do all that, but you have to balance it out, with things that really restore and nourish and feed the spirit, feed the soul. And that, I think, feeds your passion. Then that creates space. I think some of the excess news, the excess information kind of is contractive. So, what are the things that are expansive? And that's going to be different for everyone. But we have to each find the things that are expansive in order to create the space for, the vision and passion and creativity to come in. So I know we're coming to a close. Somebody wants to know what the image is on your antenna. I don't know. Looks like a sickle. Looks pretty cool. We'll have to look at it more carefully. You know where you got it?
Read.
Oh, a friend gave it to us. We'll have to ask him. All right. So I know we are coming to closure time, Lise. Anything else that needs to be said at the end? Just a wonderful group and wonderful questions.
No, I guess we're just left to thank you so much for sharing with us. And this is such a fun book, and it's great to read, and it has recipes, which is useful. So I think people will really enjoy it. And thank you so much